When a Hydra appeared inside the dungeon, even the S-rank hunters instantly knew this was not a normal raid. These were supposed to be elite hunters, the kind of people civilians worshipped like celebrities. But the moment those giant heads rose from the darkness, their formation broke, their confidence disappeared, and the strongest hunters in the room suddenly looked like side characters waiting for their turn to scream. But while they were still shouting orders and deciding who should risk their life first, one young man had already stepped forward alone. And when the Hydra attacked, they did not witness a battle. They witnessed a public execution. Heads were crushed, the monster was folded like it had picked the wrong old man, and every S-rank hunter could only watch in silence. In the middle of that mess stood Guac Pilsong, looking at them like children who arrived late to a chore he had already finished. A young man with messy, gray-purple hair casually digs into his ear while shouting that he is actually 83 years old. Our protagonist, Park Suk-cheon, is desperately trying to explain his true identity to a hospital staff that clearly thinks he's lost his mind. I mean, can you blame them? He looks like he's barely out of high school, but he's got the soul of a grumpy grandpa. A chaotic swarm of shadowy, screaming phantoms erupts from a swirling blue vortex in the middle of the sky. The narrative shifts back to the moment the world's common sense shattered, signaling the start of the monster apocalypse. This is the Great Change, the day humanity realized they were no longer at the top of the food chain. It's a total nightmare scenario. A woman with short red hair ignites a massive ball of fire in her hand while a man beside her prepares to leap into the fray. These are the hunters, the lucky few who awaken supernatural abilities to push back against the darkness. Seeing them stand their ground against a massive, horned beast really puts the hype in Hunter. They're the only wall standing between us and total extinction. A sharp, silver blade slowly pokes through the center of a humongous blue portal while the crowd outside watches with bated breath. Everyone is panicked because even the best hunters were supposedly failing this high-difficulty dungeon. The tension here is insane. You can feel the desperation of the onlookers praying for someone, anyone, to come out alive. An elderly, heavily wrinkled Park Suk-cheon staggers out of the closing gate, gasping for air as his sword drags on the ground. This is the legendary Suk-cheon in his original form, a man who just cleared an impossible dungeon solo despite his body being way past its prime. He's covered in sweat and looks like he's about to collapse from the sheer weight of his own age. He did it, the dungeon is cleared, but at what cost? How does this old warrior transform into that kid in the hospital bed we saw earlier? Something big is about to happen, and the world isn't ready for it. A silhouette of a man in a rugged jacket stands amidst a blue, swirling aura. We learn this warrior was a total beast, clearing dungeons deemed impossible even after he hit 60. But then, he just vanished like smoke, leaving nothing but fading rumors behind. A blank white screen transitions the timeline with the cold words, 10 years later. The world has moved on, and his legend has turned into a ghost story. It's honestly depressing how fast people forget the ones who carry the world on their backs. An elderly man with a wrinkled, defiant face yells in frustration while a medical staff member stands over him. This is Suk-cheon, and he's desperately trying to convince them that he is the legendary Guac Pilsong. He's shouting his name at the top of his lungs, but to them, he's just a patient who's lost his grip on reality. The staff member just stands there with his hands on his hips, completely unimpressed. Suk-cheon is losing it because this brat won't show him a single ounce of the respect he earned. Imagine being a literal god of the battlefield and getting treated like you're senile. Two male nurses stand in a bright hospital hallway, whispering and snickering behind the old man's back. They mock him ruthlessly, calling him a former con artist and laughing at the idea of a great hunter being stuck in a rural nursing home. These guys are totally clueless about the power that used to reside in that frail body. One of them even jokes that a guy who claims to handle monsters shouldn't be scared of a common cockroach. The disrespect is reaching a total boiling point as they dismiss his entire life as a pathetic lie. It's painful to watch. These punks have no idea how lucky they are to live in a world he helped save. A nurse looks back in confusion as the old man's expression suddenly shifts to one of pure intensity. The atmosphere in the room turns heavy, and the snickering staff member finally senses a terrifying presence right behind him. The air practically freezes as a shadow falls over the hallway. A massive, horrifying insect monster looms over the nurse, its jagged pincers and glowing eyes ready to shred him to pieces. A speech bubble captures the sheer terror as the realization of death hits the room. Well, they wanted to see a monster. Looks like they're about to find out exactly why the world needed a hunter like Suk-cheon. Can he even move fast enough to save them? An insect monster's mandibles snap shut right in front of a terrified nurse's face. Blood sprays across the clinical white hallway as the man falls back, his head gashed open and his eyes wide with the realization of death. He's pinned to the cold floor, staring up at a massive, hulking beetle that looks like it crawled straight out of a nightmare. I'm telling you, this guy looks like dead meat. There's no way a regular civilian survives a monster of that size in such a tight space. A sharp, metallic, qua sound effect rips through the air as a shadow drops from the ceiling like a lightning bolt. Park Suk-cheon, still looking every bit the weathered, elderly legend despite his internal rejuvenation, slams his knife deep into the monster's hard carapace. He's not just holding the beast back, he's driving that blade home with the crushing weight of a lifetime of experience. Seeing an old-timer move with that kind of explosive, predatory speed, it's absolutely insane to watch. Sukcheon stands over the bleeding man, his gaze as cold and commanding as an ancient mountain. He barks at the nurse to get up immediately if he wants to keep his life, acting like the true senior hunter he is at heart. The nurse is completely shell-shocked, his face smeared with blood as he stutters out the name, G Grandpa Pilsong, in total disbelief. Sukcheon doesn't have a second to waste on the man's confusion, bluntly telling him to grab the other survivors and find a place to hide. When the nurse asks what one old man can possibly do alone against these things, Sukcheon just gives a grim, knowing smirk. He simply says he'll do what he can, and honestly, seeing the fire in his eyes, I wouldn't want to be the monster standing in his way. Outside the hospital, the sunset paints the sky in a haunting, bloody shade of orange. Suddenly, a massive, swirling blue gate tears open the fabric of reality right in the middle of a peaceful park. It's a full-scale dungeon break. If one rogue insect almost wiped out an entire hospital wing, what happens when an entire swarm crawls out of that portal? We're about to find out if Sukcheon's rejuvenated body can actually handle a literal apocalypse. Sukcheon stands tall on a jagged rock, staring down at a nightmare crawling through the twilight. A massive swarm of giant ants begins to surge forward, their mandibles clicking in a terrifying, rhythmic screech. He looks absolutely disgusted, wondering how the Modern Hunter Association let monsters run rampant like this. Honestly, seeing a legendary hero have to clean up a modern mess is just classic. He's clearly losing his patience with this new era. A bright, flickering blue aura suddenly erupts around Sukcheon's rejuvenated body. He cracks a grim smile, muttering that it's finally time to give his old bones a proper stretch. It's a total hype moment. He might look like a kid in pajamas, but that aura is pure, unfiltered veteran power. But here's the real question. Can this young heart actually handle the sheer output of mana he's about to unleash? Sukcheon launches himself off the ridge, becoming a literal blur of speed as he dives headfirst into the black sea of insects. He's wielding a simple blade, but he's carving through the chitinous armor of the ants like they're made of wet paper. He screams at the filthy bugs to take that, showing zero mercy as he weaves through their attacks. I love this. He isn't just fighting for survival, he's venting 80 years of pent-up frustration on these monsters. Jagged streaks of blue lightning tear through the air, incinerating everything in their path. The ants are getting absolutely shredded, turning into nothing but sparks and dust as the old man's power peaks in a massive explosion of energy. He's standing right in the center of the storm, looking like a god of war reborn. This is the massive gap between a modern hunter and a legend who survived the very first dungeon breaks. Silence finally returns to the park as Sukcheon stands alone, surrounded by a literal graveyard of mangled ant legs. He's panting heavily, his shoulders slumped as he realizes just how much that short burst of power cost him. He's won the fight, but his new body is clearly hitting a wall. It's like he's trying to run a high-performance engine on a frame that isn't reinforced yet. If a bigger threat is watching from the shadows, he's currently a sitting duck. Sukcheon is bent over, his chest heaving as he sucks in every bit of oxygen he can get. He's bitter, thinking to himself that if he were just 10 years younger, these bugs wouldn't have even been a warm-up. It's that classic pride of a warrior meeting the cold reality of a body that's failing him. But then, his instincts, the only thing that hasn't aged, scream a warning, and he flinches. He knows that silence usually means something much worse is watching. A shadow completely eclipses him as a gargantuan green mantis looms over his shoulder like a nightmare. Sukcheon looks up at the literal titan, wondering aloud if this is the big boss of the hive. The creature doesn't answer with words, only a bone-chilling screech that echoes through the empty trees. Honestly, seeing him stand there so small against those massive, serrated legs makes your heart sink. You really have to wonder how he's going to get out of this one. The mantis strikes with a speed that defies its size, slamming into Sukcheon and sending him staggering back with a heavy, crushing blow. He groans in pain, the impact rattling his fragile bones and leaving him gasping while the beast looms over him again. It stands tall, silhouetted against a darkening, blood-red sky, looking like a literal god of death. Sukcheon is hunched over now, sweating and shaking, looking like he's finally reached the end of his rope. It's a brutal reminder that stamina is just as important as skill. Those huge, unblinking purple eyes lean in incredibly close, the monster's twitching mouth just inches from Sukcheon's face. It's a moment of pure, suffocating tension as the creature pauses, almost savoring the kill. But instead of breaking, Sukcheon just feels a wave of pure, unfiltered disrespect. He snaps, lashing out with a desperate strike right into the creature's face because he can't stand its filthy mouth being that close to him. He's still got that legendary fire in his soul, but the real question is, can this one strike actually kill a monster this big, or did he just make it even angrier? The monster lets out a bone-chilling screech as it recovers from the initial blow. Instead of falling, the beast slams into Sukcheon with a sickening thud, forcing him to cough up a spray of thick, dark blood. Honestly, watching his 83-year-old frame take a hit like that is terrifying. You can practically hear his bones screaming under the pressure. He's gasping for air, clutching his chest while the monster continues to shriek in its frantic death throes. It's a desperate, ugly struggle where every second feels like a minute. Sukcheon huffs and puffs, his vision likely blurring as he asks himself if this nightmare is finally over. The creature is still twitching, still dangerous, and he knows his strength is fading fast. But then, something deep inside the old legend clicks. His eyes snap open, wide and piercing, glowing with a sudden, fierce intensity as he prepares for one final, absolute strike. He's not going to let a bug take his life in some dusty corner of a dungeon. This is his all-or-nothing moment, guys, and the stakes couldn't be higher. With a burst of brilliant blue energy, Sukcheon swings his blade in a massive, shimmering arc. The monster's silhouette is sliced clean through, its final screech cut short as its body is torn apart by the sheer force of the blow. It's a total, brutal kill, leaving the massive insect crumpled on the ground like a pile of discarded trash. Finally, the silence returns to the dungeon, but the cost of that victory is written all over Sukcheon's face. He's won, but you have to wonder if he has anything left in the tank. Sukcheon collapses forward, hacking up more blood as he desperately tries to catch his breath. He mutters through the pain that he isn't dead yet, but his body is clearly reaching its absolute breaking point. You can see the sheer agony in his eyes, the frustration of a lion trapped in the body of a wounded, aging cat. He's wondering if his old body has finally hit its limit, and honestly, it's heartbreaking to see a legend this broken and vulnerable. Just as his strength fails, a swirling blue portal begins to manifest in the center of the dark chamber. Sukcheon stares at the exit with a bitter, weary smile, cursing the fact that if he were just 10 years younger, these bugs wouldn't have stood a chance. But then, the atmosphere shifts as a blue system window flickers into existence right in front of his face. It congratulates him for the clear, but there's a second message about a special reward for his achievement. This is it, the moment the legend gets a second chance that nobody, not even him, saw coming. Park Sukcheon lies broken on the ground, his face a roadmap of scars and deep wrinkles. In his final moments, a system window flickers to life, offering a special reward for his impossible clearance. Talk about a literal lifesaver. The screen announces the blessing of immortality, and suddenly, his blood-soaked skin begins to pulse with a divine blue light. His old, weathered hands start to glow, shedding years of trauma and exhaustion in seconds. It's a miracle unfolding in the dirt. The legend is being reborn right before our eyes. The massive dungeon gate swirls one last time before snapping shut, leaving the forest in a heavy, ringing silence. Rescue hunters spot a lone figure collapsed among the rocks and rush toward the impact zone. A young nurse leans over the body, her eyes wide with panic as she begs the survivor to wake up. She has no idea she's looking at a man who has lived several lifetimes. The tension is thick here because, to them, he's just another victim of the outbreak. Back in the safety of a Seoul hospital, the nurse explains that Sukcheon was urgently transferred after being found at the dungeon site. But as he sits up, the silhouette of a young man with messy, dark hair replaces the image of the old hunter we knew. When he calmly recites his birth date from over 80 years ago, the nurse completely freezes. Look at her expression, she's totally baffled. He's speaking with the authority of an elder, but he's trapped in the body of a kid who looks like he should be in a classroom, not a hospital bed. The camera pans out to the towering glass walls of the medical center as the absurdity of the situation hits a breaking point. The staff is reeling, unable to process the claim that this boy is actually an 83-year-old veteran. It's a total mess. The doctors think he's delusional, while Sukcheon is just frustrated that his seniority isn't being recognized. This is the ultimate double-edged sword. He has his youth back, but in a world that values rank and age, who is actually going to believe a teenager is the legendary Park Sukcheon? The real struggle is only just beginning. Sukcheon leans forward in his hospital bed with a look of pure, stubborn frustration. He's trying to convince the nurse that he really is the legendary veteran hunter he claims to be, even cheekily asking if he just looks a bit young for his age. It's honestly hilarious. In his head, he still thinks he's an 83-year-old who maybe just had a really good skincare day. He hasn't realized the magnitude of the change yet. The nurse looks at him with a mix of pity and confusion, bluntly telling him he looks at least 60 years younger than he's claiming. Sukcheon's eyes go wide, and the realization hits him like a freight train. You can practically see the gears grinding in his head as he tries to process that number. 60 years. That's not just looking young, that's a whole different lifetime. He lunges toward the reflection in the window, staring at a youthful face that hasn't existed for over half a century. He's clutching his cheeks in total disbelief, screaming internally about what happened to his body while the nurse watches him with a worried frown. She's totally convinced he's suffered some kind of massive brain trauma from his last fight. I mean, can you blame her? He's acting like a confused grandpa trapped in a teenager's body, and the delusional label is sticking hard. We get a tight close-up on Sukcheon's face as the shock begins to settle into a cold, hard realization. He thinks back to the divine blessing he received as a special reward in that final, desperate dungeon crawl. It wasn't just a basic stat boost or a fancy new weapon, it was a literal fountain of youth. This changes the entire game for him. He's no longer a fading memory of a hunter. He's a legend who just got his prime back. Sukcheon knows he can't just sit here and be poked and prodded like a lab rat. He starts plotting his next move, realizing that standing around won't solve his identity crisis. Just then, the nurse pulls back the curtain, calling out for a Mr. Guak Pilsong. Wait, who is that? Does the hospital have his records wrong, or is he being mistaken for someone else entirely? The tension is spiking because if he can't prove who he is, he's basically a ghost in the system. Out of the frying pan and into the fire, right? The nurse pulls back the curtain only to find an empty bed with rumpled sheets. Park Sukcheon has officially pulled a disappearing act, leaving the hospital staff completely baffled and searching for a ghost. Honestly, it's the smartest move he could make. If he stays, he's just a medical miracle under a microscope. A massive glass skyscraper towers over the city, reflecting the sunlight off its polished windows. Sukcheon stands before the Hunter Association, swapped out of his pajamas and into a casual quilted jacket and jeans. It's been over a decade since he last stepped foot here, and the sheer scale of the modernization is clearly making his head spin. You can see it in his eyes. He's a legendary warrior feeling like a total stranger in his own world. Inside the bustling lobby, Sukcheon tries to stop a passerby to ask where he can conduct his business. The guy doesn't even bother making eye contact, just dismissively points toward a glowing digital kiosk in the corner. Sukcheon stares at the touchscreen machine with pure confusion, wondering how a piece of glass is supposed to help him. It's actually kind of wild. He can face down monsters, but a basic computer terminal is his biggest obstacle right now. A heavy, calloused hand suddenly slams onto Sukcheon's shoulder, nearly shoving him aside. A rugged, middle-aged man with a nasty scowl looms over him, barking at the kid to get out of the way because he's in a rush. This punk has absolutely no clue that he's putting his hands on a legend who was hunting before he was even born. You can feel the tension spiking because Sukcheon doesn't look like the type to take a shove lightly. The crowd starts whispering, recognizing the aggressive man as Ma Du-sik, a C-rank hunter known for being a total bully. He's a notorious troublemaker who clearly thinks he owns the lobby, pointing a finger right in Sukcheon's face and demanding he move. The disrespect is off the charts, and honestly, Ma Du-sik is about to find out the hard way that age is more than just a number. Is Sukcheon going to let this slide, or is the elder about to teach this junior a lesson in manners? Ma Du-sik lunges forward, screaming in Sukcheon's face about who this punk thinks he is to give him a lecture. The bully is totally losing his mind, demanding to know the kid's age while veins practically pop out of his neck. But just as he's about to swing, a massive shadow looms over them both with a thunderous command to stop. A huge, muscular hand catches Ma Du-sik by the collar, effortlessly lifting him like a sack of groceries. Honestly, seeing this loudmouth get shut down so fast is beyond satisfying. The entire lobby goes dead silent as the crowd realizes who just stepped in. People start whispering in total awe, identifying this giant as the famous S-rank hunter, Park Sukcheon. Now wait a minute, that's our MC's name. This modern Sukcheon looks down at the situation with pure arrogance, internally complaining that the association is making an S-rank like him clean up after lowlifes. Talk about a massive ego. You can tell he thinks he's way too good for this place. Everyone starts buzzing about the newcomer's sheer physical presence. They're gawking at his massive arms, pointing out that even a beast like Ma Du-sik looks like a tiny child standing next to this guy. Deep down, the S-rank is absolutely soaking it up, pretending to be annoyed while secretly loving the flattery. He actually thinks to himself that he really is the epitome of manliness. It's actually kind of funny how much this guy loves the spotlight. The S-rank locks eyes with our rejuvenated MC, and his expression suddenly shifts from arrogance to confusion. He tilts his head, wondering why this kid in hospital pajamas looks so incredibly familiar. Suddenly, his eyes widen in total shock as a memory clicks into place. He points a finger directly at our hero and yells, "You there, you're Park Da-bin, right?" The crowd is left stumbling over their words, wondering what on earth is going on. Is Da-bin a secret from Sukcheon's past, or is this S-rank about to blow the lid off everything? Crowds whisper in the background as the massive S-rank stares down our protagonist. He calls the MC, Da-bin, and mocks him, saying it looks like time finally caught up to his once fresh face. Honestly, the nerve of this guy to talk about aging when he's built like a literal mountain. Text boxes pop up revealing that this S-rank, Park Sukcheon, has a massive insecurity because his name sounds too cute for a hunter. He's visibly shaking now, wondering how on earth this kid knows a name he tried so hard to bury. You can see the sweat beads, he's genuinely panicked that his secret is out. The MC stands there with a playful, casual shrug, acting like he didn't just drop a social nuclear bomb. Suddenly, a massive hand reaches out and grips the MC's collar, pulling him inches away from a face twisted in pure, terrifying rage. This escalated way faster than I expected, and things are getting tense. A close-up shows the MC looking surprisingly calm despite being hoisted up like a ragdoll. He realizes internally that he might have gotten a bit carried away by poking the bear with that old name. But even with a giant S rank in his face, he doesn't look scared, just a bit annoyed at himself. The S rank turns his back and starts walking, commanding the MC to follow him to a more private location. He drops a heavy, blood-red warning, "Don't even think about running away." Our guy just lets out a tired "geez," trailing behind with a frustrated look on his face. This isn't just a chat anymore, he's being led straight into the lion's den, and we have no idea what kind of evaluation is waiting behind those doors. A massive, high-tech training arena opens up before them, looking more like a futuristic stadium than a gym. The MC looks around in genuine shock, wondering when the Hunter Association managed to build something this advanced. I mean, look at the scale of this place. It's designed to withstand world-ending power, and he's standing right in the center of it. The fake S-rank steps onto the blue mats, his massive frame casting a shadow that feels like it's weighing down the entire room. He explains that this is the designated sparring zone for top-tier hunters, then suddenly stops and turns with a look that could kill. He drops the hammer. "Who the hell are you?" Okay, the interrogation just got physical, and the tension in the air is thick enough to cut with a blade. Our MC just lets out a heavy, tired sigh, looking completely unbothered by the S-rank's terrifying aura. In his head, he's thinking, "You idiot, it's me, Guac Pilsong," but out loud, he just plays it off like he has circumstances he can't explain. The S-rank clicks his tongue, realizing this kid isn't going to break with words alone. He's looking for a confession, but all he's getting is sass. Orange flames ignite around the S-rank's fist as he lunges forward with absolutely zero warning. The ground literally shatters as a vertical pillar of explosive energy erupts exactly where the MC was standing a second ago. Seriously, who starts a conversation with a building-level explosion? The raw power here is insane, and the S-rank clearly isn't pulling any punches. The smoke clears to show the MC standing perfectly fine a few feet away, having dodged that lethal strike with millisecond precision. The S-rank is visibly stunned, but the MC just hits him with a savage retort. "When you get older, you should learn to be more relaxed." Instead of getting angry, the S-rank starts to smirk. The more the MC shows his skill, the more the S-rank wants to peel back his mask. But the real evaluation is just beginning, and it's way worse than a flaming fist. A massive, bipedal werewolf wearing a dress shirt and necktie steps out of the shadows, letting out a roar that vibrates through the MC's very bones. This isn't just a sparring partner, it's a high-level instructor in monster form, and it looks ready to tear him limb from limb. If this is a test, then the passing grade is simply staying alive. How is a kid supposed to handle a beast that looks like it drinks S-ranks for breakfast? The massive werewolf instructor towers over our MC, his body wreathed in a literal wall of flame. He drops the "nice guy" act and flat out tells the kid that from here on, he's taking things seriously. Just look at that close-up of his eye, it's glowing with a predatory light that screams, "Dead man walking." The MC looks up, completely dwarfed by the beast's shadow and the sheer pressure of his aura. Honestly, I'd be shaking too. This isn't a spar anymore, it's a hunt. The floor practically shatters as the werewolf lunges with a speed that defies his massive frame. The MC manages to move, but the impact sends debris flying everywhere as the air itself seems to crack. You can see the visible, stinging, effect on the MC's leg as he tries to stabilize his footing. The werewolf just grins, showing off those massive fangs while taunting that this next part is really going to hurt. Man, this guy is enjoying this way too much for a test. Suddenly, the beast becomes a blur, spinning into a blue whirlwind of claws and pure violence. It's a total frenzy of strikes that the eye can barely follow, let alone dodge. The MC's clothes are getting shredded into confetti as he takes multiple glancing blows from the sheer force of the wind. Then, the hammer drops, a massive impact sends our boy flying through the air like a ragdoll. Seeing him get tossed like that, I'm wondering if he's even got any bones left unbroken. Dust clouds billow around the werewolf as he stands alone in the center of the destruction, looking totally unimpressed. He assumes the fight is over, muttering about how they can't settle this with just words since the kid is clearly finished. But then, a heavy thud echoes through the training center that stops him cold. A single, solid stomp cracks the floor as the MC's shoe slams down, anchoring him to the spot. Wait, did he seriously just stick the landing after that? The werewolf's arrogance is about to hit a brick wall. The MC hangs in the air like a predator, his eyes locked onto the massive beast below. The werewolf's jaw drops, sweat pouring down its face as the terrifying realization hits. His full power S-rank strike didn't even make this kid flinch. Imagine being the top dog your whole life, only to realize the rookie in front of you is actually a monster in human skin. It's the ultimate, oh crap moment, and you can practically see the wolf's confidence shattering in real time. A dark, jagged shadow creeps over the MC's face as a terrifyingly calm smirk pulls at his lips. He casually mentions that this might hurt a little, and before the wolf can even blink, he unleashes a punch that looks like a literal explosion of pure force. The impact is so violent it creates a shockwave that tears through the air, turning the training ground into a disaster zone. You've gotta wonder, if this is him holding back, what happens when he actually tries to kill something? The massive instructor is sent spiraling backward like a broken toy, crashing into the floor with enough force to leave a crater. He's completely out cold, face down and motionless, while the MC just stands there looking surprisingly worried about his own strength. He actually has the nerve to ask himself if he went too far. Yeah, no kidding. He just turned an elite S-rank sparring partner into a permanent part of the architecture, and now he's worried about the test results. The dust settles as we transition through the chaotic aftermath of the evaluation. It's clear that the hierarchy in this place just got flipped upside down, but the real question is how the fake S-rank is going to react to this kind of power. Is he going to be an ally, or is he going to see our MC as a threat that needs to be eliminated? The scene shifts to a blonde-haired hunter, her chest heaving as she gasps for air in the middle of a literal slaughterhouse. Behind her, a mountain of lizard-like monster corpses is piled high, drenched in blood and scales. An older man steps into the frame, asking if she's alright, but her eyes are wide with a mix of exhaustion and lingering fear. She survived, but whatever just happened in that dungeon was clearly on a different level. Who are these people, and how do they connect to the MC's new path? The stakes just jump from training to a life-or-death struggle. We see a close-up of the MC's trembling hand as he stares at the ground, completely lost in his own head. He's coming to a heavy, almost spiritual realization after witnessing the fake S-rank's raw power, even calling the sight of that strength more beautiful than anything else in the world. It's that chilling, quiet moment of awe when a warrior recognizes a peak they haven't reached yet, and it's honestly a little scary how much he admires it. The screen fades through a quick transition before the elder hunter's face fills the frame, looking absolutely panicked as he screams for the MC to wake up. Dabin's eyes snap open, his pupils dilated and sweat beads flying as he gasps for air like a man who just clawed his way back from the afterlife. You can practically feel the desperation in his lungs. That training session was clearly closer to an execution than a spar. The elder is absolutely livid, scolding the boy for being reckless enough to attack a man of that caliber after 10 long years. But the fake S-rank just looms over them, his shadow swallowing them both as he asks who this kid really is, wondering if he hasn't been beaten enough yet. The arrogance radiating off this guy is insane. He's looking at our MC like an annoying bug he's about to step on. Dabin lets out a long sigh and starts casually dusting off his quilted jacket, looking way too composed for someone who is just unconscious. The S-rank's eyes narrow as he analyzes the situation, realizing the kid possesses a blessing that is always active, a passive ability that never requires mana to trigger. That's essentially a permanent cheat code in a world where every second of mana usage counts, and you can see the wheels turning in the S-rank's head as he realizes this relative is a complete anomaly. The camera pans over a set of rock-solid, muscular abs as the opponent stands there with his clothes literally shredded to pieces from the intensity of the fight. Someone finally snaps at him to put some damn clothes on while they regroup, but the atmosphere is still heavy with the weight of what just happened. The MC might have lost the fight, but he's definitely sparked a dangerous curiosity in the most powerful man in the room, and we all know that's where the real trouble starts. The MC stands there awkwardly with his clothes hanging in tatters, apologizing because his own skill literally shredded his outfit. The fake S-rank just waves it off, looking surprisingly chill as he mentions how the world's been a chaotic mess ever since the gates appeared anyway. He actually pitches a wild idea. Since the MC is young again, why doesn't he just jump back into the hunter life full-time? It sounds like a dream comeback, but you can tell the MC is thinking about a much darker reality. The MC leans in, his gaze turning sharp as he asks the S-rank if he actually knows the real reason he chose to retire in total secrecy. Suddenly, that arrogant S-rank energy evaporates, replaced by a visible bead of sweat and a look of genuine confusion. He's caught off guard, and honestly, seeing a top-tier hunter look this rattled just by a question, that tells you the secret behind his retirement is way heavier than we thought. The MC starts dropping names, Taeyoung, Byamsik, Jun, asking if the S-rank still remembers the people they lost. The fake Sukcheon looks like he's been struck, his voice barely a whisper as he admits there is absolutely no way he could ever forget them. This isn't just small talk anymore, this is a confrontation with the ghosts of a past that clearly haunts every single person in this room. You can practically feel the temperature drop. Looking down at his scarred hands, the MC explains that those comrades didn't just die, they sacrificed everything specifically to keep him alive. The S-rank gets visibly emotional, clutching his chest and swearing that he would have done the exact same thing to save him. It's supposed to be a moment of brotherhood, but there's a layer of bitterness here that makes you wonder if the wrong person survived that day. A haunting flashback hits as the MC wonders if it was truly right for an old man to survive on the stolen lives of the young. We see a grim image of an old man carrying a body through the dark, a visual representation of the crushing guilt he carries every single day. The S-rank falls into a stunned, heavy silence, unable to even look him in the eye after that. But the real question is, if the truth comes out, will this party even survive the first floor of the next dungeon? The S-rank hunter stands across from our MC in the training hall, his posture relaxed but his eyes calculating. He admits he's been debating exactly how to utilize Dabin's potential in the field. Dabin looks down at the bright green D-rank band clamped onto his wrist, realizing he's officially being categorized as a bottom-tier rookie. It's honestly hilarious, a legendary hero from the past being treated like a kid who just learned how to hold a sword. The scene shifts to the edge of a dense forest gate as the S-rank drops a specific assignment. He wants Dabin to join a D-rank raid to investigate a hidden anomaly. Dabin looks genuinely caught off guard. Why would a powerhouse like this care about a low-level crawl? The S-rank gets dead serious, confessing he can't reveal the full details yet, but having Dabin's strength there is the only thing that'll put his mind at ease. You just know there's something terrifying lurking inside that easy dungeon if an S-rank is this nervous. Suddenly, a massive, scarred man with a weapon strapped to his back shoves past, shouting at the kid to get out of the way. His lackeys start barking immediately, demanding Dabin apologize because their leader is about to be promoted to C-rank. This is Wang Scorpion, a former gang boss who clearly thinks he's the king of the world just because he can bully teenagers. Watching these low-level thugs act like they're the main characters is honestly embarrassing, but it's the perfect cover for Dabin to hide his true power. The three hunters strut into the dungeon entrance, laughing and mocking the weakling they left standing in the dirt. Dabin just watches them walk into the shadows, his eyes turning cold and sharp under the rim of his bucket hat. He thinks to himself about how fools always judge others based on a rank or a face, never realizing they're walking alongside a god of war. The real question is, when the anomaly finally shows its face inside that gate, will these thugs even survive long enough to realize who Dabin actually is? A rugged man leans into the frame, asking for our protagonist's name while warning him that veterans usually love to bully the fresh meat. He introduces himself as Guak Pilsong, offering a firm, friendly handshake to the student in front of him. After dealing with so many arrogant high-rankers, seeing someone treat the MC with actual human decency feels almost suspicious. But for now, it seems like Dabin has found his first potential ally in this mess. The MC stares back with a completely straight face and accidentally tells Pilsong that he's 80 years old this year. His heart nearly stops when he realizes the massive blunder, quickly pivoting to 18, before the old man can process the insanity he just heard. Pilsong just bursts out laughing, clapping a hand on his shoulder and saying the kid is the exact same age as his own son. It's a hilarious, high-stakes moment of panic. When you've lived for decades, keeping your cover as a teenager is apparently the hardest part of the job. Two new faces join the circle, including an orange-haired girl carrying a massive bow and her shy friend in glasses. The archer, Park Ji-hyun, introduces herself and Lee Eun-ji with a bubbly energy that completely shifts the mood of the clearing. She suddenly leans in way too close to Dabin's face, a playful smirk dancing on her lips as she welcomes him to today's raid. She calls it her special way of greeting, but the intensity in her eyes suggests she's already trying to figure out what makes this student so different from the others. Pilsong watches the interaction with a sentimental glow, giving a double thumbs up while tearing up at how beautiful youth is. It's a wholesome, goofy moment, but as the MC looks at the older hunter, his expression turns sharp and focused. Something about the name, Guak Pilsong, is scratching at the back of his mind, making him wonder if this man is really just a friendly veteran. As the gate looms closer, the real question is, who here is actually who they claim to be, and who is hiding a past as dangerous as Dabin's? The MC stays silent, his eyes lingering on the fake S-rank's expensive suit before being interrupted by a newcomer. This is Kim Tae-jun, a C-rank hunter who's acting as the raid leader for today's operation. He's got that corporate hero look down, but his smile feels a little too forced to be genuine for my taste. Tae-jun studies the MC, his mind clearly racing to connect the dots behind that blank stare. He admits it's incredibly unusual for someone of the S-rank status to personally recommend a random raid member. You can practically see the gears turning. he's trying to figure out what kind of secret backing or hidden power this kid is actually hiding. Suddenly, Taejun's demeanor shifts as he bellows for all the hunters to gather around for the final check. The diverse group, from the skeptical veteran in the bucket hat to the stoic red-haired woman, all turn their attention toward the center. It's that heavy, suffocating moment right before a dive where the reality of the danger finally starts to sink in. Behind them, the D-rank gate swirls like a dark, cosmic vortex, casting a cold blue glow over the entire clearing. Taejun stands tall, projecting his voice to command the crowd as he starts the official pre-raid briefing. He's playing the part of the fearless hero perfectly, but to be honest, it feels more like a staged performance than real leadership. Among the hunters, you can see a flicker of ambition in their eyes, with some clearly hoping this raid is their ticket to a promotion. Taejun crosses his arms tightly, warning the squad that even D-rank dungeons are notorious for being unpredictable and lethal. It's the standard safety speech, but the way he's shouting makes you wonder if he's actually nervous under that suit. Taejun's face is bathed in the gate's eerie light as he demands absolute obedience to ensure a successful raid. But our MC, he just watches this grandstanding with a look of pure, unadulterated annoyance. To a legendary hunter who's seen it all, making this much of a commotion over a lowly D-rank dungeon is just plain embarrassing. But the real question is, will this leader be able to handle it when things inevitably go sideways? The red-haired hunter tisk tsks in annoyance, muttering about how these newcomers don't understand the value of preparation. Suddenly, a veteran hunter nearby nearly blows a fuse, screaming about how a tiny brat, like our MC, actually had the nerve to talk back to them. Honestly, seeing these high and mighty hunters get their egos bruised by a teenager is the highlight of my day. It's like they have no idea who they're actually dealing with. The fake Park Suk-cheon lets out a mocking smirk, looking down at the MC with pure, unearned condescension. He tells the newcomer that only those with actual, blood-soaked experience can truly grasp the gravity of a dungeon raid. The irony here is so thick you could cut it with a hunter's blade. This guy is literally lecturing the legendary hunter he's trying to impersonate. You can almost see the MC's patience wearing thinner by the second. The MC lets out a heavy, exhausted sigh, looking at the group like a tired teacher dealing with a classroom full of toddlers. He mutters, "Those fools," under his breath, realizing that these veterans are far more delusional than he originally thought. It's that classic, "I'm surrounded by idiots" energy that makes you realize just how far ahead of them he actually is. He's not scared of the dungeon. He's just bored of their amateur dramatics. The muscular S-rank turns his back to the group, coldly announcing that the briefing is officially over. He wears this confident, almost predatory smile as he leads the way toward the glowing gate, convinced he's the star of the show. You can practically feel the famous last words energy radiating off him right now. He thinks he's leading a successful raid, but he's really just walking into a storm he isn't prepared for. A sharp, ringing sound effect echoes through the air as the chapter title flashes across the screen. It feels like the final click of a lock before a cage is opened. The time for talking and ego-tripping is finally over. Now, the only thing that's going to matter is who has the strength to actually make it back out alive. A massive, swirling blue portal hums with lethal, ancient energy right in the middle of the rocky wasteland. One by one, the hunters step into the shimmering light, their figures dissolving into the gate's abyss. As the MC finally steps forward to enter, you just know this routine raid is about to turn into a total nightmare for anyone who gets in his way. A group of hunters stands under a blistering, wide-open sun. Park Ji-hyun shields her eyes from the glare, complaining that she should have brought way more sunscreen if she knew the heat would be this brutal. Honestly, who can blame her? While she's already dreaming of an ice-cold beer to escape the heat, Suk-cheon, disguised as the rookie Dabin, quietly adjusts his jacket and hat. He's the only one who looks like he's actually preparing for a fight instead of a tan. Two veteran hunters walk side by side, already planning their post-raid celebration. They're laughing about grabbing pork belly and drinks, treating this entire D-rank operation like a casual Sunday stroll. One of them even offers to scout ahead just to speed things up so they can get to the restaurant faster. But then we see Suk-cheon's eyes. He's silent, watching them with a gaze that's way too sharp for a kid. It's like he's watching people walk toward a cliff they can't see. The team finally steps into the dim, purple-hued dungeon, and the atmosphere shifts instantly. A moss monster lunges from the shadows, but Kim Taejun handles it with a single, effortless strike. He cuts it down before it can even roar, and a blue system window flashes, confirming the monster's defeat. It's a clean kill, showing off his C-rank power. Taejun warns the group that even if the entrance was small, they can't let their guard down. He's playing the part of the professional leader perfectly. Taejun demands that everyone follow his instructions to the letter, but the tension is already gone. One hunter just laughs him off, shouting a casual, "I will," because, to them, that easy kill proved there's nothing to fear. Suk-cheon stands in the back, his face half hidden by the brim of his bucket hat. He notices the shift immediately. The moment the hunters saw the monster's grade, their fear vanished. They're relaxed, they're joking, and they're completely off guard. But in a place like this, that's usually the exact moment everything falls apart. The question is, what's waiting for them deeper in the dark? Sukcheon raises his hand like a student in a boring lecture. He politely asks if he can say something, but Taejun barely acknowledges him as an equal. The leader just smirks, assuming the rookie is trembling because it's his first official raid. Seriously, Taejun's ego is so big it's a wonder he can even fit through the dungeon gate. Taejun flashes a smug grin while praising the efficient layout of the cave. He's acting like he's already cleared the place before even swinging a sword. But then Sukcheon gets serious, asking what the plan is if the dungeon's difficulty spikes beyond their expectations. It's a valid point, but in this group, common sense is treated like a joke. Can they really afford to be this overconfident? A grizzled, rough-looking hunter suddenly barks at the kids to shut up. He leans in with a twisted, mocking face, telling Sukcheon he can crawl back to the entrance if he's that terrified. The rest of the squad starts laughing along, treating the kid like a complete burden. They think they're being tough, but they're really just signing their own death warrants. They have no idea who they're talking to. Sukcheon looks completely unimpressed as Taejun gives him a condescending look. The leader starts a history lesson, explaining that dungeon measuring tech has been commercialized and perfected for over 5 years. He's essentially telling the kid to trust the machine and stop being a coward. The irony is, Sukcheon has probably survived more impossible dungeons than this entire team combined. Taejun closes his eyes and chuckles to himself, looking like the hero of his own story. He sighs that newbies are always such a massive headache for professionals like him. He's so blinded by his own arrogance that he's ignoring every red flag the dungeon is throwing at them. But the laughter is about to stop, because something deep in the shadows just realized they've arrived. And trust me, it's definitely not a D rank. What happens when the perfect technology fails them? A thick, muscular hand suddenly cinches around Sukcheon's shirt, nearly lifting him off the ground. One of the veteran hunters has finally lost his cool, dragging the kid close while demanding to know what's going on in his head. He's looking for a fight, convinced that this rookie is just being a disrespectful brat who doesn't know his place. Man, talk about picking the wrong person to bully. Watching this guy try to intimidate a literal legend is actually painful to watch. Sukcheon doesn't even flinch, looking the man dead in the eye with a chillingly blank expression that should be a massive red flag. The hunter just laughs in his face, mocking him and saying this paralyzing fear is exactly how a pathetic newbie should act in a real dungeon. But the entire vibe shifts instantly when Sukcheon calmly asks if he really wants to know the reason behind his behavior. You can practically feel the air get heavy in the room. That's not the voice of a scared kid, that's a predator issuing a final warning. Before the hunter can even process that threat, a gargantuan purple beast erupts from the darkness with a shriek that rattles the team's teeth. It's a massive, serpent-like anomaly dripping with toxic green energy and sporting eyes that glow like radioactive embers. The hunter's tough guy act evaporates instantly as he freezes like a deer in headlights while the creature towers over them. Yeah, it turns out that newbie wasn't the one who should have been scared. The real nightmare just punched its clock. We get a terrifyingly close look at the creature's maw as it opens wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth and a flickering, purple tongue. It lets out another guttural scream, its entire body pulsing with a dark, suffocating aura that screams catastrophe. The hunter's eyes are wide with pure, unadulterated terror as he realizes his C-rank experience means absolutely nothing against a monster of this scale. With the raid leader in a state of complete shock and a beast this size on the loose, how many of them are actually going to make it out alive? A brilliant white arc of energy slices through the air with terrifying precision. Before the massive purple anomaly can even finish its roar, its head is clean severed, hitting the dirt with a heavy, sickening thud. The speed is so insane that the creature's eyes are still glowing as its body goes completely limp. It wasn't even a fight, it was a total execution, and Sukcheon didn't even break a sweat. The buzz-cut hunter stands there frozen, his jaw practically touching the floor in pure disbelief. He's staring at the twitching remains, his brain refusing to process how a rookie in a bucket hat just ended a catastrophe in one move. Sukcheon doesn't give him a second to recover, just tossing a cold, sharp look over his shoulder. He tells the man straight up, "You'd better follow my advice." Sukcheon turns his back and casually walks away, looking more like he's finishing a morning stroll than a dungeon raid. He's completely unfazed by the kill, but behind him, the veteran hunter is absolutely fuming. You can see the man gritting his teeth, his pride shattered as he mutters about how nobody dared to talk down to him. Honestly, the ego on this guy is his biggest weakness right now. Park Ji-hyun stares down at the monster's severed head, her hands trembling as she grips her weapon. She knows something is horribly wrong because a D-rank dungeon is usually just full of oversized bugs or stray dogs, not legendary tier nightmares. This thing looks like the strongest monster she's ever seen, and the reality of their situation is finally sinking in. If a rookie just saved them from a beast of this caliber, then who the hell is he really? And if this was just the entrance, what kind of world-ending horror is waiting for them deeper inside? Sweat beads roll down a hunter's trembling face. The crushing weight of the atmosphere is finally starting to crack their composure. This isn't just a dungeon anymore, it feels like a death trap. Looking up, the jagged, oppressive rock walls of the canyon seem to close in on them. They're stuck in a natural funnel with nowhere to run if things go south. And honestly, things are already going south. A young female hunter looks toward her team with wide, fearful eyes. She desperately asks what their next move should be since they're clearly outmatched. Her voice is shaking, and you can tell she's on the verge of a total breakdown. She suggests they stop trying to be heroes and find the adults or the high rankers to save them. It's a pathetic plea, but can you blame her? She knows they're just fodder in a place like this. Her teammate stares back, his face pale as he recalls the carnage they just witnessed. He's haunted by how dangerous it was just at the entrance, let alone what's waiting deeper in. The silence that follows is deafening as they stare into the mouth of a dark, hollow cave. That pitch-black darkness is staring right back at them, and it doesn't feel empty at all. It feels like something is waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Suddenly, a purple, glowing-eyed monster lunges from the shadows with a bone-chilling roar. The beast's grah echoes through the stone walls, shattering the brief moment of silence. These rookies didn't even have time to draw their weapons before the predator was on top of them. Red exclamation marks flash as the ambush connects with brutal precision. This is exactly what Sukcheon warned them about, but they were too busy panicking to listen. A hunter collapses with a pained groan, the air knocked out of them instantly. The situation turns into a bloodbath as a high-pitched scream of KKYAAAA rings out through the canyon. It's pure chaos, and the protection they expected is nowhere to be found. Amidst the carnage, Kim Tae-jun leads the remaining squad deeper into the gorge with his sword drawn. He's trying to keep a professional front, but you can see the tension in his stride. He's walking them straight into the heart of the anomaly's territory, and I have a bad feeling not everyone is coming back from this walk. Taejun's brow furrows in extreme focus as he processes the aftermath of the fight. He's staring at the spot where the anomaly stood, internally screaming about whether he really just faced a mere D-rank monster. In his gut, he knows the truth. That creature felt like a C-rank nightmare, the strongest thing he's ever laid eyes on. The sweat dripping down his face isn't just from the climate, it's the cold realization of a massive power gap. Honestly, if the leader is this shaken, what chance does the rest of the team have? Sukcheon tilts his head with a blank expression, looking completely unbothered by the chaos. Taejun catches a glimpse of the kid and desperately tries to convince himself that he's just overthinking things. He reasons that there's no way a rookie on his very first raid could have handled a high-rank monster so effortlessly if it were actually dangerous. But as the terrifying thought of the dungeon being misranked flashes through his mind, the fear truly starts to set in. Is he leading these people into a slaughterhouse based on a measurement error? Taejun stares at the ground, forcing his breathing to level out. He tries to hide his internal panic by telling himself that the association's difficulty measurements are never wrong, and a failure like that is impossible. He concludes it must all be his imagination, a temporary lapse in judgment caused by the weight of leadership. It's a classic move, pure denial. But in a dungeon, ignoring your instincts is usually the very first step toward a funeral. A veteran hunter gasps for air as sweat pours down his face in the sweltering heat. The physical toll is finally hitting the entire group, and they're yelling for Taejun to finally give them a second to recover. Taejun relents and calls for a short break, leading to immediate grumbling from Park Ji-hyun about the blistering heat and her aching feet. They're stopping to rest, but the tension in the air is suffocating. They think they're safe for a moment, but in this place, a break is just more time for the next anomaly to find them. Sukcheon stands there clicking his tongue while watching Taejun wipe sweat from his face. It's pretty hilarious seeing a legendary veteran judging a C-rank leader for being out of breath after a simple hike. Right next to them, this older, balding hunter starts grumbling under his breath about how young people these days are way too weak to walk for even 30 minutes without complaining. He's acting all tough and superior, but his attitude does a complete 180 the second he feels a sudden, sharp chill down his spine. Something is very wrong with the ground beneath them. A jagged crack suddenly splits the floor as a sinister purple light begins to bleed out of the earth. The double exclamation points over the hunter's head say it all. This isn't just a minor tremor, it's a full-blown ambush. A massive, scaly purple limb whips out of the dark crevice, sending dust and debris flying everywhere in a violent explosion. The old man who was just talking trash is now shrieking about a monster appearing out of thin air, his face twisted in pure terror. Taejun finally snaps out of his daze and bellows for the team to get into formation immediately. But honestly, looking at that scale, you have to wonder if they're already too late. The creature fully reveals itself, a terrifying purple serpent with a head that looks more like a prehistoric nightmare than a standard D-rank boss. It lets out a piercing, low hiss that vibrates through everyone's chest, and you can practically feel the heavy, dark mana radiating off its scales. But here's the crazy part, instead of being smart and waiting for orders, the old hunter turns back to glare at Sukcheon. He's still nursing a bruised ego from being embarrassed earlier and decides this is the perfect moment to show the kid how a real pro handles business. It's pure, blinding arrogance. The hunter's heavy boots stomp into the dirt as he launches himself forward like a cannonball. He screams at the top of his lungs that he's going to handle this monster all by himself, completely ignoring the massive power gap. He's got this crazed, desperate look in his eyes, telling the rookies to watch closely as he raises his axe high for a killing blow. He's charging headfirst at a beast that looks like it could swallow him whole without blinking. Is he actually strong enough to pull off a miracle? Or is this about to become a very messy lesson in why you should never underestimate a dungeon? The axe connects with a sickening thud, sending purple sparks flying everywhere. Taejun pours every ounce of his C-rank mana into the blade, screaming, "Die," with a desperation that echoes through the entire cavern. You want to root for him, but something about that creature's calm makes my skin crawl. It's like he's trying to cut through a mountain with a butter knife, and the mountain hasn't even noticed yet. The blade just stops dead, not even drawing a single drop of blood from the monster's rubbery hide. Taejun's jaw practically hits the floor as he realizes his ultimate move was basically nothing more than a love tap. My attack isn't working at all, he mutters, and you can hear the absolute terror starting to leak into his voice. This wasn't in the manual for a D-rank raid, and the reality of the situation is finally starting to sink in. Sukcheon is just standing there, watching this disaster unfold with the eyes of a veteran who's seen it all before. He notes to himself that attacking a monster while it's actively defending is just basic rookie stuff, and Taejun is failing the test miserably. The monster just pauses for a second, almost like it's mocking them, waiting for the perfect moment to strike back. It's honestly chilling how still it's being while Taejun panics. A massive, dark energy starts swirling around the creature as it finally prepares to move its massive bulk. Taejun's eyes go wide, and he lets out a frantic, "Damn it," because he knows he's pushed his luck way too far. I'm screwed, he thinks, and honestly, he's probably right. The sheer power gap here is starting to look like a bottomless abyss that's about to swallow them whole. The ground erupts in a shower of dirt and stone as Taejun is sent flying backward from the sheer pressure of the creature's movement. He's gasping for air, scrambling on the dirt, while the rest of the rookies look on in total, paralyzed shock. Seeing their invincible leader get tossed around like a ragdoll is the quickest way to kill a team's morale, and you can see the hope leaving their eyes. Taejun manages to find his feet, but his suit is ruined and his pride is in even worse shape. He holds out a hand, telling everyone to stay back, desperately trying to reclaim some shred of his authority. But look at his face. That's not the look of a man who's in control of the situation. He's just realized that in this dungeon, the normal rules of logic have officially left the building. What happens next when the person supposed to protect you has completely lost his mind? Taejun's face is a map of pure desperation, beads of sweat rolling down his forehead as he stares at the wall of purple muscle before him. He grinds his teeth, muttering that he has to bring it down, but you can see the flicker of doubt in his eyes. He's supposed to be the elite C-rank leader here, but right now, he looks like a child lost in the dark, realizing he's way out of his depth. Throwing caution to the wind, he lunges forward with a frantic HYAH, swinging his blade with every ounce of strength left in his body. The impact is sickening. A series of metallic clangs echo through the chamber as his sword literally bounces off the monster's thick hide. He groans in pain, the recoil vibrating through his bones and nearly snapping his wrists. It's official. His standard attacks are doing absolutely zero damage to this anomaly. But then, a sharp command pierces the chaos: aim for the head. Taejun flinches, his head snapping upward as he realizes he's been hacking away at the wrong spot this entire time. High above the writhing tentacles, the anomaly's true head emerges from the shadows, its green eyes burning with a cold, predatory intelligence. The realization hits him like a freight train. He hasn't even touched the real beast yet, and he's already exhausted. Fueled by a mix of raw fear and a sudden spark of hope, Taejun leaps into the air, his silhouette cutting across the dark purple energy of the dungeon. He's soaring straight into the jaws of death, his sword raised high for a desperate, all-or-nothing gambit. The crazy part is, he's actually following the rookie's advice without a second thought because he knows this is his last chance to survive. He lets out a roar that's half war cry and half sob, bringing his sword down in a devastating, glowing arc that splits the air. The blade connects with the creature's skull, unleashing a massive burst of light and pressure that shakes the very foundation of the dungeon. He's put his entire life into this single strike, but as the smoke begins to clear, you have to wonder, did he actually just kill the monster, or did he just make it very, very angry? Taejun drops to one knee, gasping for air while leaning heavily on his sword. He's completely drained, but the massive purple tentacle behind him finally lies motionless in the dirt. His teammates rush over, frantic and wide-eyed, asking if their leader is actually okay after that insane, desperate clash. Taejun just nods, his professional business suit ruined and his ego clearly bruised, admitting it was way more dangerous than he expected. I mean, look at the guy, he's a C rank and he barely survived a single encounter in what's supposed to be a low-level dungeon. That should have been his first red flag. Sukcheon watches from the sidelines, his calm eyes fixed on the victorious leader. While the rest of the team celebrates their survival, the man disguised as Dabin stays quiet, sensing that the heavy, suffocating pressure in the air hasn't actually shifted yet. Ji-hyun turns back to Taejun, her voice trembling with a mix of hope and sheer exhaustion, asking the one question everyone wants to hear: is the dungeon cleared now? You can feel the desperation in her voice. They've reached their limit and just want this to be over. But why hasn't the exit opened? Ji-hyun's eyes suddenly widen as she scans the silent, dark cavern. The victory starts to feel hollow because something vital is missing, the golden system notification that every hunter relies on to know they're safe. Taejun stands there, sweat dripping down his forehead, as a cold realization hits him harder than any physical blow. He knows the rules. Usually, a clear message pops up the very second the boss dies, but right now, there's only an eerie, deafening silence. It's that terrifying moment where you realize you celebrated way too early. Taejun's eyes tremble as his mind races to find a logical explanation. But before he can even speak, more purple heads and massive tentacles begin slithering out from the cracks in the rocks like a rising tide of death. A massive shock icon flashes as the true, horrifying scale of the anomaly is finally revealed to the group. Taejun completely loses his cool, gritting his teeth in a panic and screaming that this doesn't make any sense. He thought he killed the boss, but he's just realized they haven't even seen the real monster yet. Sukcheon stands tall, looking Taejun dead in the eye as he asks if he really still believes this is a D-rank dungeon. Taejun looks like he's about to have a heart attack, sweat beads rolling down his face while Sukcheon stays perfectly calm. Our boy is essentially calling out the elephant in the room while the leader is still trying to process the nightmare they walked into. Honestly, seeing Sukcheon so unbothered while the guy in the suit is losing it, that's the kind of confidence you only get from being a secret legend. Taejun's face goes pale as the weight of the situation finally hits him like a freight train. He's desperately trying to convince himself the Hunter Association couldn't have messed up the difficulty assessment this badly. But deep down, the reality is staring him in the face. It's that classic moment where logic fails and pure, cold instinct takes over. You can see the gears turning in his head. He knows he's out of his depth. Suddenly, the ground begins to vibrate with a violent rattle as a massive purple serpent monster looms over the group. This thing looks like it crawled straight out of the deepest pit of hell, its green eyes glowing with a predatory hunger that'll give you chills. The sheer scale of this creature confirms every fear. This isn't a raid anymore, it's an execution. The way it towers over the hunters makes them look like ants. And man, that roar. You just know things are about to get messy. Survivors are losing their minds, screaming for direction, while Taejun finally snaps out of his daze and realizes lives depend on his next word. He commands everyone to retreat immediately and request support from the surface. Surprisingly, he's actually stepping up as a leader instead of just a corporate puppet. He knows one wrong move means a TPK, so he's choosing the only logical path left: survival. It's high-stakes drama, and you can practically feel the oxygen leaving the room. Sukcheon watches the retreat with a subtle, knowing smirk, thinking to himself that Taejun is actually quite a capable guy. It's hilarious seeing a legendary veteran grade a rookie leader while a giant monster is literally snapping at their heels. But as the scene fades, the real question remains: can they actually reach the gate before the dungeon closes the trap? The tension is through the roof, and the real fight hasn't even started yet. The hunters are slumped over, gasping for breath after that narrow escape. Wong Scorpion barks at the leader, demanding to know what the hell is actually going on. I mean, can you blame him? This easy raid just became a total nightmare, and everyone is on edge. Taejun stands tall, dropping a truth bomb that the monsters in this dungeon are definitely not just D-rank. Scorpion gets defensive immediately, yelling about how the association officially measured this as a D-rank zone. It's the classic rookie mistake, trusting a piece of paper over the literal claws trying to rip your throat out. Sukcheon coolly tells Scorpion to keep his voice down or they'll be swarmed by monsters in seconds. But before Scorpion can even snap back, a sharp rustle echoes from the mouth of a nearby cave. Talk about perfect, terrifying timing. The silence just became their worst enemy. Every head snaps toward the pitch-black cave entrance as the sound grows louder and more frantic. Suddenly, a pale hand reaches out from the dark, a voice croaking out a desperate, shaking plea for help. Everyone's heart just skipped a beat. Finding survivors in the middle of a rampage is the last thing they expected. A girl in a hoodie stumbles out into the light, her legs trembling with every painful step. Park Ji-hyun follows close behind, looking completely horrified as her companion finally loses her strength and collapses onto the dirt. It's a miracle they're even alive, but honestly, they look like they've seen a ghost. The women frantically explain they were ambushed by a monster without any warning. Taejun watches them, his face darkening with suspicion as he wonders how such young kids even ended up in a high-risk dungeon like this. There's something seriously wrong here, something that doesn't add up, and the air is getting colder by the second. Is this a rescue, or are they walking into another trap? We're about to find out. Taejun stands over the two women, demanding to know what they're doing in a death trap like this. Jihyun trembles, admitting they were lured in by the promise of a high-paying part-time job. Honestly, who wouldn't be suspicious? This job sounds like a total setup, and it definitely didn't include fighting for their lives. Scorpion looms over them like a predator, his massive shadow practically swallowing the survivors whole. Jihyun and her companion look absolutely terrified, realizing they're trapped between bloodthirsty monsters and a hunter who looks just as dangerous. You can feel the tension. One wrong move and this situation is going to explode. Taejun grits his teeth as the term sneakers is thrown around. Civilians who break into raids just to steal the loot. Scorpion is convinced these kids are the reason the dungeon is glitching out and spawning high-rank monsters. It's a classic blame game, but is he right? Or is there something even scarier hiding in the shadows that they haven't seen yet? Taejun isn't buying the theory, arguing that a few amateurs couldn't possibly turn a D-rank dungeon into a C-rank nightmare. Suddenly, the old man, Pilsung, speaks up with a shaky voice, reminding everyone that lives are on the line. Scorpion loses it, screaming about why they should risk their necks for people who shouldn't even be here. The guy's a jerk, but in a place this lethal, his cold logic is hard to ignore. Taejun is sweating, paralyzed by the impossible choice between group safety and his duty as a leader. But then, Sukcheon steps forward, looking completely unbothered by the chaos, and simply says he'll go rescue the kids himself. Talk about a mic drop moment. This rookie is walking straight into the jaws of the dungeon alone, and honestly, I think we're finally about to see what he's really hiding. Don't go anywhere, because the real raid is just beginning. Sukcheon stands his ground, asking the group if they're really cold-hearted enough to just abandon the survivors. Wang Scorpion just scoffs at the idea, basically telling Sukcheon that if he's so eager to die, nobody is going to stop him. Honestly, this guy's ego is going to get people killed, but Sukcheon doesn't even blink. Taejun watches the interaction in silence, his mind racing as he realizes Sukcheon's combat knowledge and monster analysis are way beyond any D-rank hunter he's ever seen. He makes the executive call to trust the rookie, officially handing over the responsibility of the survivors' safety to the old man, Pilsung, and the boy. It's a massive gamble, but Taejun knows his own authority is slipping through his fingers. Sukcheon steps forward without a second thought, offering to carry the kid himself to keep the pace up. When Eun-soo looks up at him, shaking with fear, Sukcheon drops that calm, veteran aura and promises, straight to the kid's face, that he will definitely save them. You can feel the shift in the air here. This isn't just some kid being brave, it's a legendary hunter making a vow he doesn't intend to break. Taejun orders the rest of the party to keep moving toward the exit before the rampage completely swallows them whole. In the background, Wang Scorpion is still laughing, calling Sukcheon a brat who's just looking for a grave. Seriously, I'm just waiting for the moment Scorpion has to eat those words, because he has no idea who he's talking to. Jihyun and the other survivors watch Sukcheon with a mix of confusion and hope as he prepares to lead them through the chaos. Taejun closes his eyes for a split second, praying that pinning all their lives on this one slight chance isn't a death sentence. But as the gate begins to warp and the monster's roar echoes through the cavern, even Taejun realizes that the nightmare is only just beginning. Can Sukcheon really protect everyone while keeping his true identity a secret? We're about to find out. A long, heavy sigh cuts through the pitch-black silence of the cavern. We see the survivors huddled in the shadows, finally coming to terms with the fact that they were set up. I should have known better than to trust adults, the dialogue reads, dripping with the kind of bitterness that only comes from being left for dead. It's honestly heartbreaking. These people weren't hunters. They were just desperate souls sold a dream that turned into a nightmare. You can feel the cold reality of their situation sinking in, and it's a heavy, suffocating feeling. A flashy man in a leopard print shirt leans in, his face twisted into a predatory, trustworthy grin. He's promising a young, naive kid that this D-rank dungeon is basically free money, and that all he has to do is hide until it's over. He mocks the kid's fear, asking if he's been deceived his whole life, right before leaning in with those cold, greedy eyes to call it a jackpot. This guy is absolute scum, and it makes my skin crawl. He knew exactly what he was doing, leading innocent people into a slaughterhouse just for a quick payout. Back in the present, Gilwoo sits shivering against the jagged rocks, his red and white jacket stained with dust and fear. He's gasping for air, his mind racing as he wonders if anyone else is even left alive in this hellhole. Suddenly, a shadow stretches across the cave floor, and Gilwoo looks up, his eyes wide with pure, unadulterated terror. The pacing here is tight, your heart just drops for this kid. In a place like this, a shadow usually means one thing: you're about to become a monster's dinner. Gilwoo freezes as the figure approaches, but his terror turns to shock when he realizes it's not a beast. A woman, one of his fellow survivors, rushes toward him, her voice cracking as she screams, "Gilwoo, are you okay?" She's practically shaking with relief, clutching her hands together as she thanks goodness he's safe. Sukcheon stands just a few feet away, his expression unreadable as he observes the reunion. It's a beautiful, emotional moment, but the reality is still hovering over them like a ghost. They've found each other, but the dungeon is still screaming for blood. How are they supposed to get out of this alive? Eun-soo looks up with wide, trembling eyes as he asks who exactly just saved them. One of the survivors quickly explains that Sukcheon is a hunter who came to their rescue. Honestly, looking at Sukcheon's casual bucket hat and t-shirt, it's no wonder the kid is skeptical. But before Eun-soo can say another word, Sukcheon lands a sharp whack right on the kid's head. He scolds the boy for calling him a kid when he's the one doing the heavy lifting here. It's a classic big brother move, but it's crazy how he can joke around while they're still standing in a literal graveyard. The dark-haired woman looks down, her voice breaking as she explains why they're even in this nightmare. She reveals they were homeless and desperate, with no money and nowhere to go, making them easy targets for the people who pushed them into this dungeon. Sukcheon's expression shifts from playful to deadly serious as the realization hits him. These weren't just lost hikers, they were tricked and used as fodder by some real bastards. You can see the internal fire starting to burn in Sukcheon's eyes. He's not just here to finish a raid anymore, he's here to settle a debt. A massive, purple-scaled serpent with glowing green eyes suddenly lunges out of the shadows. The peaceful moment is shattered instantly as the monster's roar echoes through the cavern. The survivors freeze, the realization dawning on them that they haven't actually escaped the nightmare yet. It's like the dungeon heard them talking and decided it wasn't finished with them. The tension just spiked to a 10, and you can practically feel the air get heavier as the beast prepares to strike. Eun-soo collapses to the ground, clutching his mangled leg and begging the others to just leave him and run. He's completely given up, thinking he's nothing but a burden that's going to get everyone killed. But Sukcheon just looks back at him with this incredibly calm, confident smile. He tells the kid not to worry because he has zero intention of leaving anyone behind. It's such a boss move, standing between a terrified kid and a giant monster like it's just another Tuesday. But the real question is, how is he going to kill this thing while protecting 3 injured civilians at the same time? Eun-soo screams at the top of his lungs, begging Sukcheon to just take the others and run. He's completely spiraling, convinced that staying means certain death for everyone. But Sukcheon just stands there, his back turned to the chaos with a posture that is way too steady for a D-rank. He looks over his shoulder with a sharp, confident smirk that catches Eun-soo completely off guard. Honestly, the level of main character energy radiating off him right now is insane. Sukcheon takes a firm step forward as a massive, glowing-eyed beast roars in the background. He declares with absolute certainty that he will protect them, no matter what. You can see the total disbelief written all over the survivors' faces. They've gone from pure terror to this weird, flickering hope. It's a heavy moment, but you have to wonder, can he actually take on a rampage-level threat while babysitting 3 people? The perspective shifts outside to the jagged mountain pass where the rest of the raid party is making a run for it. The hunters are visibly frustrated, muttering about how pathetic it feels to be stuck running away without even swinging a sword. Taejun is at the front, sweating bullets and urging everyone to keep moving toward the exit. It's such a sharp contrast. The supposed leader is leading a retreat while the guy he looked down on is currently standing his ground. Taejun hangs his head, his expression darkening as the weight of his cowardice starts to sink in. He's internally panicking, asking himself if his teammates are even alive and if leaving them behind was the right decision. You can see the guilt eating him alive in real time. He's trying to justify it as a tactical retreat, but his face tells a completely different story. Just as they're about to reach safety, one of the hunters stops and looks back toward the dungeon entrance with a confused, huh? He frantically calls out to the leader, pointing back at something that shouldn't be happening. Taejun looks back, his eyes wide with total confusion. What did they see? Did the monsters break through, or did Sukcheon just do something so loud it shook the entire mountain? The look on their faces says whatever is coming is way beyond their pay grade. Guak Pilsong is drenched in sweat as his jaw drops in pure terror. Behind him, the dungeon gate begins to swirl into a violent, blinding vortex of energy as it starts to contract. This isn't just a glitch, the exit is literally sealing itself shut. Seriously, of all the times for the door to lock, it has to be right now. Wang's scorpion spins around, shouting at Taejun to explain what the hell is going on. The reality of the situation hits like a freight train. This gate only appeared 3 days ago, but it's already closing. Normally, it takes a full week for a dungeon to hit berserk status, meaning the internal mana is reaching a breaking point way too fast. The timeline is completely broken, and that usually means everyone inside is about to have a very, very short life expectancy. The dark-haired woman trembles in the shadows, her face pale as she realizes they are truly trapped. The hunters start whispering the one thing no one wants to admit. Did the dungeon go into overdrive specifically because they stepped inside? The team turns to Taejun, desperate for a plan, but you can feel the panic rising. If the dungeon is reacting to their presence like an immune system attacking a virus, they aren't the hunters anymore, they're the prey. Taejun tries to play it cool, telling everyone to relax because the gate will reopen once the boss is dead. But Guak Pilsong isn't buying the corporate pep talk and screams that this place is at least C rank, not D rank. He points out the lethal reality. How are a bunch of D rank hunters supposed to clear a C rank meat grinder? If they can't kill the boss, they're literally buried alive in a monster-filled tomb. Taejun holds out a hand, claiming that if the dungeon goes full berserk, the gate will eventually be forced open by the sheer pressure of the mana overflow. He's desperately trying to keep the peace, but Pilsong just lets out a heavy, defeated sigh while Ji-hyun and the others watch on with zero confidence. They're stuck between a rampaging dungeon and a leader who's clearly out of his league. Can they actually survive a berserk event, or is this where the raid ends in a total wipe? The air is thick with the scent of a trap closing shut. Wong Scorpion's head snaps to the side, his grizzled face hardening as a gut feeling turns into a grim reality. A massive overhead view shows the party standing in a dusty clearing, now completely surrounded by hulking purple beasts that seem to have appeared out of thin air. The trap has finally snapped shut, and the silence of the cave is replaced by the low, guttural growls of predators closing in. This is bad, like, wipe the whole party, bad, and the sheer number of signatures appearing at once is enough to make anyone's blood run cold. Ji-hyun and the other survivors freeze, their eyes wide with a terror that only comes when you realize you become the prey. The air is filled with the sound of sharp gasps as they look around at the rising number of monsters emerging from the darkness. The dark-haired woman looks like she's about to collapse, and honestly, can you blame her? These snakes are slithering out from every angle, and they don't look like they're here for a chat. The camera pans down to the grit on the floor as a shout echoes through the cavern, commanding everyone to prepare for an immediate battle. 5 of these massive, horned purple serpents rise from the shadows, their glowing green eyes locked onto the hunters with murderous intent. It's a total mismatch in numbers and scale, and you can practically feel the pressure of the dungeon rampage peaking. The question isn't just how they'll fight, but if they even can. Kim Taejun steps into a low stance, his business suit jacket fluttering as he grips his katana and tries to sound like a confident leader again. "I'll take the lead," he yells, though the whispered, "damn," coming from Wong Scorpion as he heaves his heavy axe tells a much darker story. They're putting up a brave front, but the tension is thick enough to cut with a knife. You can see the sweat on Taejun's brow. He knows his reputation is on the line, and so are their lives. Taejun launches himself into the air, his face contorted in a scream as he swings his blade down on the closest monster. The steel connects with a sickening slash across the creature's hide, but a sudden exclamation mark flashes, signaling a massive shock to the system. He's putting everything he has into this first strike, but the monster's reaction suggests it barely felt a thing. If his opening move doesn't draw blood, how are they supposed to survive the other 4? The real nightmare is just getting started. Sukcheon yells out that he's jumping in to help as the battlefield turns into a total war zone. Taejun doesn't hesitate, leaping through a massive, fiery explosion to reach the front line before anyone else gets hurt. But the situation is already critical. A purple monster with glowing green eyes is looming right over the dark-haired survivor. Honestly, if they're even a second too slow here, she's completely finished. Wong Scorpion's face contorts as he screams at the beast to make sure it knows he's the real threat. Taejun uses that split-second distraction to bring his blade down in a massive, shimmering overhead arc that looks like it's trying to cut the world in half. He lands with a heavy thud, his eyes locked on the carnage he just created. You can see the tension in his shoulders. He's trying to act like the leader, but the pressure is clearly getting to him. Taejun wipes sweat from his brow, desperately counting down and realizing they only have 3 monsters left to clear. Beside him, Wong Scorpion starts getting that dangerous spark of overconfidence, actually thinking to himself that C-rank monsters aren't such a big deal after all. Man, that is the absolute worst thing you can say in a dungeon. Seriously, never celebrate until you're standing on the other side of the gate. A strange, eerie green mist begins to swirl around the hunter's feet, and Scorpion turns around with a look of pure confusion. Suddenly, the entire cavern seems to shrink as a colossal, multi-headed purple hydra towers over the entire party. This thing is a nightmare made flesh, dwarfing every other monster they've faced today. The scale of it is just insane. It makes the hunters look like ants. Scorpion's eyes go wide with terror as he finally realizes this isn't just another minion. This is the boss monster. Taejun looks like he's about to completely break down, realizing the dungeon rampage must have pushed the boss all the way to the gate entrance. They're trapped, outmatched, and the gate is failing behind them. Now the real question is, can Sukcheon stop a boss-level rampage without revealing his true identity, or are they all about to be wiped off the map? A massive purple hydra head looms over the battlefield like a living nightmare, its shadowy heads filling the entire sky. The raid party is completely scattered, and one hunter is collapsed on the ground, desperately reaching out for a Hyungnim to save him. It's honestly hard to watch because you can see the absolute terror in his eyes. He knows he's just one bite away from being completely erased. Wong's scorpion runs through the dust with his axe, his face twisted in a mix of rage and pure panic. Behind him, his teammate is still begging for help, but Wong is forced to look back at the horror closing in on them. This guy is supposed to be the muscle, the veteran hunter, but even he looks like he's seeing his own ghost right now. What makes this worse is the realization that even the strongest guy here is totally outclassed. The Hydra's glowing green eyes lock onto the fallen hunter as its jaw unhinges to reveal rows of massive, dripping fangs. With a deafening screech, the beast lunges downward, its neck snapping forward with enough force to shatter the ground itself. It's a killing blow, plain and simple, meant to end the poor guy right there. Honestly, the tension is so thick you can practically feel the cold air of the monster's breath. It feels like the end of the line. Park Ji-hyun grips her bow, her body shaking as the monster's massive shadow washes over her. She's watching the carnage unfold, trapped between the instinct to run for her life and the duty to stand her ground. But then, she sees an opening, her expression shifting from total terror to a desperate, last-second hope. The crazy part is that she isn't running, she's waiting for the perfect moment to trigger their only remaining plan. Ji-hyun screams, now, with everything she has left, her voice cracking under the absolute strain of the moment. In a blinding flash of blue sky and white light, Kim Tae-jun drops from above, a massive energy slash trailing behind his blade as he risks everything on a single, vertical strike. This is their absolute limit, a Hail Mary play that has to work. But as Tae-jun descends, you have to wonder, is this enough to kill a god-tier monster, or are they just jumping straight into the grave? Kim Tae-jun's blade tears straight through the Hydra's thick purple hide, sending a spray of dark fluid into the air. The severed head falls away, and for a split second, Tae-jun actually lets out a triumphant grin, thinking he's finally landed a killing blow. He really believes he's found the winning move that saves everyone. Honestly, I'd be cheering too, because seeing that head roll is the first bit of hope we've had. But in a dungeon like this, hope is usually just a setup for a much bigger disaster. Suddenly, the severed stump starts bubbling with a disgusting, pulsing purple light that makes your skin crawl. Tae-jun's smile completely vanishes as he watches the monster's flesh literally stitch itself back together in a matter of seconds. It's not just healing, though, it's multiplying, as multiple new heads burst out of the wound like a twisted, nightmare flower. A shadow larger than a house looms over him as the beast looks down with those glowing, malevolent green eyes. This is the exact moment you realize they aren't just fighting a monster, they're fighting an immortal force of nature. How do you even kill something that gets stronger every time you wound it? Tae-jun grits his teeth, his face drenched in sweat as the cold, hard realization finally hits him. He aimed for what he thought was a weak point, but he just walked right into the monster's trap and made things 10 times worse. He looks absolutely exhausted, his eyes shaking as he realizes his heroic play just signed his team's death warrant. You can see the crushing weight of regret in his expression. The guy knows he's out of options, out of mana, and completely out of time. The Hydra doesn't give him a single second to recover, unleashing a blinding white shockwave of pure destructive energy. Tae-jun is caught dead center, his body being tossed through the air like a broken ragdoll. He smashes into the solid ground with enough force to crater the stone, the impact vibrating through the entire cave floor. It's a brutal, one-sided execution that leaves the air smelling like ozone and blood. Tae-jun collapses in the dirt, coughing up a mouthful of bright red blood as he struggles to even stay conscious. From the sidelines, Park Ji-hyun screams out for her leader, her face pale with a level of pure terror we haven't seen yet. The Hydra towers over them, its massive jaws wide open and ready to swallow what's left of the party. The raid is officially a disaster, their leader is broken, and death is literally seconds away. But wait, where is Suk-cheon during all this chaos? Is he really just going to stand by and watch his teammates get slaughtered? Ji-hyun's eyes widen in a moment of pure, paralyzing shock as the Hydra's massive purple head lunges forward. She tries to scramble back, clutching a small dagger that looks like a toothpick against those giant fangs. It's a terrifying sight because she's completely cornered, and the beast is moving way faster than a monster that size should. Honestly, if nobody steps in right now, she's history. A sudden blur of motion cuts through the air, and someone grabs Ji-hyun just as the Hydra's jaws snap shut. It's Suk-cheon, moving so fast he's practically a ghost, whispering for her to hold on tight. He launches them into the air, and the ground where she was standing a second ago completely disintegrates under the Hydra's impact. The sheer timing on this save is insane. He's playing a completely different game than the rest of these hunters. Suk-cheon lands effortlessly on a nearby ledge, holding Ji-hyun bridal style while the colossal monster roars in the background. He looks down at her and calls her, young lady, with this incredibly calm, steady voice that feels totally out of place in a death trap. Ji-hyun stares up at him, her face transitioning from terror to total disbelief as she starts to recognize the power radiating off him. He just gives her this confident, slightly cocky grin and tells her she's worked hard enough. It's his turn now. This is the moment we've all been waiting for, the secret legend finally dropping the act. As he sets her down, we see a strange, intense light beginning to gather around Sukcheon's hand and waist pouch. The air around them starts to vibrate with a pressure that's even heavier than the Hydra's presence. Ji-hyun is left dazed and breathless, looking at this young man who suddenly feels like an ancient, unstoppable force of nature. He stands tall, looking back at the multi-headed nightmare with a look of pure boredom. You have to wonder, is the Hydra even going to last 10 seconds against him? The real question isn't if he can win, it's how much of the dungeon is going to be left standing when he's done. Taejun looks up from the dirt, his face a mess of blood and confusion. He manages to choke out the name Guak Pilsong, still convinced the MC is just some high-ranking veteran in disguise. He's terrified, immediately asking about the safety of the kids they were supposed to protect. It's honestly heartbreaking to see a leader this broken, worrying about others while he's literally at death's door. Sukcheon looks down with a calm, almost effortless smirk under the brim of his bucket hat. He tells Taejun to relax because the kids are perfectly safe, but then his eyes narrow with a chilling intensity. He mutters that there's something much more important to handle right now. You can feel the temperature in the room drop. He's done playing nice. The Hydra's massive purple heads loom in the background, glowing with a toxic green aura. Sukcheon explains the grim reality. The gate has disappeared, which means a dungeon outbreak is about to hit the human world. If this monster isn't vaporized in the next few minutes, thousands of innocent people are going to die. The pressure is insane, but Sukcheon doesn't even look stressed. Taejun's shadow falls over his eyes as he trembles, whispering a gut-wrenching apology for his misjudgment. He's carrying the weight of the entire failed raid on his shoulders, feeling like he's the reason everyone is about to die. It's that raw, Mamoru-style despair that makes you just want to reach through the screen and help him. But how can a C-rank hunter even apologize for a monster this big? Sukcheon stands tall as Taejun struggles to even stay upright behind him. With a surprisingly gentle tone, the MC tells him that he worked hard and did well enough for a C-rank leader. It's the ultimate sign of respect from a true predator to a struggling warrior. But as Sukcheon turns his full attention back to the Hydra, his aura shifts from helpful stranger to absolute calamity. The real question is there even going to be a boss left to loot once he lets go? Sukcheon stands like a small, immovable statue while the massive purple Hydra towers over him like a literal mountain of scales and spite. With a chillingly calm expression, he looks the beast right in its glowing eyes and tells the team he's taking over from here. Seriously, the confidence on this guy is insane. He's stepping into a death zone with the same energy as someone taking out the trash. He suddenly launches himself into the air, moving so fast he's practically a blur against the dungeon walls. The Hydra snaps its multiple jaws in a frenzy to catch him, but Sukcheon is already 3 steps ahead, effortlessly using one of the serpent's heads as a springboard to go even higher. It's like gravity is just a suggestion to him, and honestly, the sheer athleticism is enough to make your jaw drop. A silver flash tears through the air as Sukcheon delivers a flurry of precision slashes right across the beast's eyes. The Hydra lets out a guttural, ear-piercing scream of pure agony as purple blood sprays across the cavern. This looks like a winning move, right? He's actually dealing damage to a monster that just wiped out an entire elite squad. Taejun watches from the ground with wide, hollow eyes, shouting that it's useless because no physical attack can outpace this thing's healing. And he's right. The Hydra's body begins to bulge and glow with a sickening green light, its flesh knitting back together in seconds as it grows even larger. This is the definition of a raid-wipe mechanic, and seeing it regenerate like that just kills any hope the team had left. Sukcheon looks more annoyed than scared, muttering about how irritating the regeneration ability is while a broken Taejun can only stammer out a pathetic apology. Behind them, Ji-hyun is literally shaking, her voice trembling as she whispers that they're all doomed to die in this hole. The despair in the room is heavy enough to choke on, but you have to wonder, is the MC actually reaching his limit, or is he about to show them what a real god-tier hunter looks like? Taejun squeezes his eyes shut, his face twisted in pure agony. He's internally asking if this is finally the end for them, but then Sukcheon cuts in with a smirk, asking if they're giving up already. It's honestly wild seeing him so calm while everyone else is literally preparing for their funerals. The MC stands tall as a speech bubble mentions that giving up is only for counting cabbages. He drops this bizarre, old-school pun right in the middle of a death zone to snap them out of it. Taejun is just staring at him in total shock, probably wondering how anyone could be this flippant with a Hydra staring them down. Ji-hyun looks up with a stunned expression, her eyes finally clearing. She actually agrees with the MC's ridiculous logic and tells the group it's too early to throw in the towel. She starts walking forward, her leather jacket creaking as she finds her courage again, and man, you can really feel the momentum shifting. Taejun forces himself to look up, his voice steadying as he promises to provide whatever support he can. He clenches his fist, crediting a healing skill for his second wind, while Wong's scorpion stands behind him looking equally ready for one last round. It's a total 180-degree turn from the despair we saw just a second ago. Ji-hyun and the other team members nod with fierce determination, promising to help in any way they can. The entire party gathers around the MC, forming a united front against the massive serpent. They're looking at Suk-cheon like he's their new lighthouse, even if they have no idea how much power he's actually hiding. A close-up shows Suk-cheon flashing a broad, confident smile as he prepares to make his move. There's a slight, strook sound effect of him shifting his stance, and you can just feel that the atmosphere is about to explode. He's done playing the rookie role, and honestly, the Hydra is about to find out exactly why you should never judge a hunter by his bucket hat. But can even the MC's secret power handle a boss this massive in one shot, or is he leading them into a trap? The MC stands tall against the massive purple coils of the Hydra, telling the team not to lose hope. He's standing right in the path of destruction, essentially telling a group of elite hunters to just hang tight while he handles it. Even with the Hydra screaming in the background and heads looming like nightmare fuel, he's dead calm. Seriously, the contrast between his casual bucket hat and that world-ending monster is just wild. But wait, why is he acting like this is just a Sunday stroll? Suk-cheon flashes a confident grin and asks the team to cover him before sprinting straight into the maw of death. He's literally running at a mountain-sized snake with nothing but a small hunting knife and a dream. The Hydra isn't just sitting there, though. Its throat starts glowing with a terrifying, molten heat. You can see the fire building up in its jaw, ready to incinerate everything in its path. This isn't just an attack, it's a literal execution, or at least, that's what the monster thinks. Kim Tae-jun screams out a desperate warning as the Hydra releases a colossal wave of fire directly at the MC. The entire area turns into a hellscape of orange and red as the blast swallows Suk-cheon whole. He doesn't even try to dodge. He just looks up at the incoming wall of flames like he's checking the weather. It honestly looks like he's being vaporized instantly. My heart actually skipped a beat here. Is he really just going to tank a boss-level ultimate with nothing but his bare skin? Tae-jun cries out the MC's alias in total despair, but a massive, blinding flash of light suddenly erupts from the center of the fire. Instead of the MC dying, the shockwave is so violent it sends the archer, Park Ji-hyun, reeling in absolute disbelief. When the smoke clears just a bit, the Hydra head that fired the blast is the one screaming in agony as it begins to disintegrate into ash. The hunter who was supposed to be a rookie just turned a certain death situation into a total slaughter. But the real question is, was that even a fraction of his true power, or did the Hydra just witness a god in a bucket hat? The Hydra's massive head erupts in a silent scream as white-hot flames consume its flesh from the inside out. One of the hunters screams that it's useless to resist as the beast's final, desperate blast is swatted aside like a mere fly. Suk-cheon isn't even looking at the monster anymore. He's just a blur of movement cutting through the chaos. Honestly, watching a rank D rookie treat a world-ending boss like a tutorial mob is just terrifying. Can you imagine the sheer pressure those other hunters are feeling right now? They're watching a god play pretend. 3 massive heads loom over Suk-cheon, but he doesn't even flinch as blue energy trails follow his every step. With one swift motion, the air itself seems to scream as he passes through the monster's defense like it was made of wet paper. The massive purple body of the Hydra hits the ground with a sickening thud, kicking up a mountain of dust. You can literally feel the weight of that silence as he just walks away from the carcass like he's finishing a light jog. It's the total lack of effort that really hits home for me. He's not even breaking a sweat. Tae-jun stares at the scene, sweat dripping down his face while his brain refuses to process what his eyes are seeing. He's seen high rankers before, but this is different. This is total, effortless dominance from a man he thought was a total burden. Suk-cheon just lets out a tired phew, adjusting his bucket hat like he's more annoyed by the humidity than the giant snake he just killed. How is anyone supposed to believe this guy is just a D-rank hunter? Seriously, the system must be completely broken if this is what low rank looks like. The light catches the edge of Suk-cheon's simple blade, which shouldn't even be able to scratch a monster of this tier. Suk-cheon gives a sideways glance, his expression completely blank as if he's already thinking about what to have for dinner once they get out of this hole. It's that cold, detached look that really sells the mystery of his true identity. He's not even breathing hard while everyone else is on the verge of a literal heart attack. What is he even thinking right now? Even as the smoke rises from the Hydra's remains, the flesh begins to bubble and stitch itself back together with a wet, disgusting sound. Suk-cheon sighs, muttering about how frustrating the regeneration is while the other hunters realize their own attacks are basically doing 0 damage. The tension is through the roof because even though he's clearly stronger, the monster just won't quit. Will this thing ever actually die from normal attacks? Or is Suk-cheon going to have to unleash something even more cataclysmic to erase it for good? Suk-cheon looks up with a curious, as he catches sight of the sky clearing above the jagged cliffs. Below him, the Hydra's mangled remains start to hiss and billow with thick, purple steam as it tries to force a final regeneration. But instead of looking worried, Sukcheon just lets out this chillingly confident smile and mutters, "Alright, in that case." Honestly, whenever an MC smiles like that in a boss room, you know the monster's life insurance is about to expire. A massive white arc of energy trails behind Sukcheon as he launches himself into the air like a human railgun. He's closing the distance so fast that the air itself seems to scream, his hand tight around a dagger that looks way too small for what he's about to do. He lets out a sharp "Echa" that echoes through the entire cavern, his eyes locked onto the monster with zero hesitation. The intensity here is wild, he's not just attacking, he's erasing a threat. The screen explodes into a flurry of black and white slashes as Sukcheon carves through the boss and the solid mountain behind it. The Hydra is literally shredded into purple chunks, its regeneration completely overwhelmed by the sheer volume of the MC strikes. As the dust settles and debris rains down, we see Sukcheon landing perfectly on his feet, looking like he just finished a light jog. Can we just talk about how he sliced through a mountain and a boss at the same time? That is some straight-up god-tier power. Park Ji-hyun and Kim Tae-jun stand frozen in place, their eyes wide as they struggle to even swallow. They're looking at the devastation Sukcheon left behind, realizing that the kid they were worried about is actually a walking natural disaster. Suddenly, bright blue system windows ping into existence in front of the entire party, signaling the end of the struggle. But the real question is, how are they ever going to look at Sukcheon the same way again? And more importantly, what did that system notification just reveal to them? A glowing blue system window floods the screen with the words, "Dungeon cleared." After that absolute nightmare, the impossible finally happened. Honestly, seeing that notification is like taking your first breath of air after being underwater for an hour. Park Ji-hyun can barely find her voice, stuttering out a "we" before the whole group erupts into a shout of "We did it." They're cheering because, against every single odd, they're actually still alive. I mean, can you blame them for being this hyped? They were seconds away from being Hydra snacks. Kim Tae-jun closes his eyes, a small, genuine smile breaking through the blood and grime on his face. The crushing weight of leadership and the paralyzing fear of death just evaporate. He knows the truth, though, looking at his battered, relieved team, he realizes that if it weren't for Sukcheon, none of them would be making it out of this cave. It's a heavy, humbling realization. Seeing the survivors look at the MC with that mix of sheer awe and utter confusion really hits different. A swirling, dark blue portal tears open in the air with a sharp, magical hum. The exit is finally here, but everyone freezes for a second, almost unable to believe the nightmare is truly over. Then, Sukcheon steps into the light, his voice as calm and steady as if he just finished a morning jog, asking, "Is everyone okay?" Just look at him. He's the only one who doesn't look like he just fought a god-tier monster. Talk about a legendary level of keeping your cool. Kim Tae-jun looks Sukcheon right in the eyes and simply says, "Thanks to you." He isn't just being polite, he's acknowledging that this D-rank kid is a monster in human skin. Tae-jun can't wrap his head around how a supposed rookie exudes the aura and presence of a seasoned, world-class hunter. The screen literally spells it out for us, he's truly remarkable. And Sukcheon, he just gives a casual nod and says, "Alright, let's all go home." Man, the humility on this guy is actually insane after what he just did. Sukcheon stands tall, the light of the portal catching his silhouette as the raid officially concludes. He's finished his job here, leaving the veteran hunters behind in a state of absolute, permanent shock. This was supposed to be a routine crawl, but they just witnessed a god walk among men. But now that his power has been unleashed, how long can he really stay hidden in the shadows? The world has no idea what's coming for it now that Sukcheon is on the move.